Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nakat's Bookish Cafe. I am here to start my Squash That series vlog. Alright guys, there is a new round of Squash That series that is starting tonight. Today is the 6th and this readathon is technically starting at midnight for the 7th. However, Bailey from Is Bailey Reading, who is the host of this readathon, is in a different time zone than me, so it is starting at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. here on the 6th for me, and in fact it should have dropped just right now. So let's go ahead and refresh the screen and we'll see if it's there, and then I will talk a little bit more about what's going on. My mouth is doing a ton of stuff because I put a lip mask on, so I'm not like slobbering all over my mouth. Even though that's exactly what it looks like. Okay, so let's turn you around. All right, so as you can see, it's 10 o'clock and Jordaline, thank you for that video. And we are on Bailey's channel. So let's refresh. Refresh. And then videos. All right, here it is. It's right here. Oh my gosh, there's already been 2 views. We're gonna be the 3rd people to view it.
Hello, it's Bailey.
Hi, Bailey.
Welcome back to my channel.
All right, let's see what the first prompt is.
You are here at the starting point of Squash That series, round 11, and we are playing Choose Your Own Adventure. The very first prompt of this readathon is to finish a series.
Oh my gosh.
So whether you have one novella left to finish a series, whether you have one novel left to finish a series, whether you need to read 3 books to finish a series, that's what you're gonna do.
All right, so first prompt is gonna be finish a series. I do have some options for that. Before we start even getting into that, let's talk a little bit about the readathon. We kind of really just like dived right in there. So if you don't take part in this readathon, it is a readathon that is hosted honestly like a few times throughout the year. Sometimes it's a month long, sometimes a week long, sometimes a weekend long, and it is always hosted by Bailey, and it is so that we can continue to focus on continuing and finishing series, because a lot of readers start a lot of series and they then get a little overwhelmed and have trouble finishing them. I am amongst those people. So I really like to take part in this readathon. This round specifically is a little over a week long. I think it is 9 days long, because I believe it is from the 7th to the 16th, I believe. So it's pretty much a week and then like an extra weekend in there. And it is a choose your adventure round. So essentially you get a prompt, like I just showed you the first prompt that Bailey dropped, and then I am going to pick a book and I'm going to read that book. And once I finish that book, I am going to return to that video, and that video will have 2 other videos that I can go to based off of whatever she decides. Like if she says, did you like this book or did you not like this book? If you liked this book, go to this video. If you did not like it, go to this video, kind of situation. And then I'll go to the next prompt, read the next book, and then we will continue to do that. At least for 5 prompts, I believe she said 5 was like the minimum. I am going to go ahead and continue this vlog until I get to the very end. Will I do it within the time frame of the actual readathon? I am not very optimistic about that. And she said, you know, you can just keep doing it until you reach the end. It's okay if you don't do it within that time period or anything. So I'm going to try and do it within this time period, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. But that being said, I will be reading at least 5 books in this vlog. Usually I try to do quite a bit of b-roll. However, this is going to be a chatty vlog. I'm actually not going to be doing like any b-roll. I just want to put that out there. If you're someone who has watched my vlogs in the past and has certain expectations of it, just because it'll make it easier for me editing, and I just have a feeling that this is going to be a longer vlog just because I am talking about more books than I usually do, since I usually only do about 3 books per vlog when I usually do a vlog. So that being said, let's actually take a look. I do have my priority TBR. Let me lean you against this pumpkin here. Okay, so I have my priority TBR because I did play my TBR game and I chose a few of the books that are options for this readathon when doing my TBR game. So let's look at that first. Okay. So already we have a couple options because we need to finish a series, not just catch up to a series. So an easy option would be Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. This would complete this duology, and it is short and it is a young adult, so it is a quicker read. We also have 2 chonkers here. Both, I think one's almost 500 pages and one is over 500 pages. But reading these and starting the readathon off with these might not be the best idea. I will also say today is Thursday, and tomorrow I'm actually after work. I'm working a full day until 5, and then I'm driving down to Portland because there is Portland's book festival going down this weekend, and it starts at around 9:30, I believe, and Portland is at least 2 hours away from me with good traffic. And so I was like, that would be just too early of a morning, too much rushing. So after work tomorrow, I'm going to be driving 2 hours at least. Oh, Friday traffic, you never know, might be more, down to Portland. I'll actually be meeting a friend there tomorrow night, having dinner, then staying at a hotel, and then going to the festival and then driving up again. So chances are tomorrow, I already did the majority of my packing tonight, but I still have some things I need to do. Tomorrow and Saturday, there might not be a lot of reading going on. So choosing something like this might be a good idea. But also, since I'll be driving a lot, choosing an audiobook might be a good idea. The only other book, the physical book that I have, is a library book. And this would be the 3rd and final book in, I don't even know what this series is called. The Silence of the Girls. I actually own the first 2, but I didn't want to buy the hardback of the 3rd and final book, so I just went ahead and got it from the library. So this is a shorter book as well, and it's the last book in a series as far as I know. I'm assuming that it is. I mean, on the one hand, it's got relatively big text and big margins, but it is also an adult novel and it's a retelling of the Iliad, I believe. So it's a little bit more intense than, say, this one, at least world building wise, and I don't know about concept wise. I mean, I'm assuming since it's an adult. But let's take a look at my audiobooks real quick. I'm gonna have to turn you off for a moment because my Libby app is on my phone, and so are you right now. All right, so audiobook wise, I only have one that would complete a series as far as I know, and that is The Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar Disorder by Sonora Reyes, I believe, and that is the sequel to a Catholic girl's guide to, no, a lesbian's guide to Catholic school, I believe. I really enjoyed the first book. The second book just came out. It might be a good option because there are a couple people waiting for the audiobook and it's only 10 hours long. I listened to them on 2 times speed. So if I listen to them, I could probably get the majority of it done during my drive. The only problem is that technically I can only read 1 book at a time for this because I don't know what the other books are. And I don't really listen to audiobooks when I'm just like around the house. So like tomorrow while I'm at work during my lunch break, on my breaks, I'd be like, what do I read? Do I just listen to the audiobook? I guess I would. I guess I would do that. So I think we might go with that option. Okay, I think going with an audiobook because of the amount of driving I'm going to do is going to be the smartest. So we're going to go ahead and start with this book. It is a companion novel. We are following the brother of the main character of the Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School. I really enjoyed that book. I really enjoyed the messaging in it. I really enjoyed the main character. I actually didn't like the love interest that much, but in this book, we are following her brother, who is, I'm trying to think of what's spoilery. I don't think, I'm gonna say it's not super spoilery, is that he's gay, and he has a lot of shame around that because based off the title of the first book, they come from a relatively Catholic family. And so he came out to his sister in the first book because he had a boyfriend, and she ended up meeting him and seeing them together and things like that. And in that book, he actually ends up breaking up with his boyfriend because his mental health is just so bad that he really can't sustain a relationship, and his shame around it is too bad. And I believe in this book, he is trying to work a lot on his mental health. He's obviously going to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I believe in the first book, he has to go to a mental facility due to some severe depression. So I'm not sure if this will talk about like suicidal feelings, because that was definitely something he was feeling in his sister's book. And it seems like he might also be trying to get to a place where he can fix things with his partner as well, because it was very obvious that they care for each other, but he's just not in a place where he can be in a, loving and healthy relationship, because he's not loving himself and like mentally healthy right now. So I think it's going to be a very emotional read. It's probably going to be maybe even a little bit of a tearjerker. So I am excited to pick this book up, and hopefully I will have it done by tomorrow, which would be a really great start to this readathon. Actually, no, I won't have it done tomorrow because I'll be starting it tomorrow. So by the end of Saturday, hopefully I will have it done, and that'll be a really great start to this readathon for me. I will probably, the way I'll do this usually is when I start a book, I'll probably let you know the synopsis of it and everything, and then I will check in with you about 50% through, and then check in with you once I've finished it. Fingers crossed I don't finish this book while I'm down there, because I won't be having my laptop with me or anything, so I won't be able to look up the next prompt. I mean, technically I could look it up on my phone, but I kind of want to like record the experience, which I can't do unless I do the screen recording. And can I record myself? No, I doubt I will finish it while I'm down in Portland. Let's just put it that way. So we're not even going to worry about that. So this is going to be my first book. It is going to be completing this duology. It is also a relatively new release. So pat on the back to me for getting to a new release, because I don't be doing that a lot, and I'm excited to read it, and I will go ahead and check in with you guys when I am about 50% through this audiobook. All right, guys, I am here. You're on my computer, which I'm trying to turn on right now, because we are going to choose our next book before I leave for my trip. And I'm cheating a little bit because I technically have been listening to this audiobook all day at work, and I have about an hour and 22 minutes left, and I am listening to it on 2x speed, but obviously it's not going to take my whole drive down there to finish this book. So I need to go ahead and just figure out which book I need to bring down with me. So hopefully whatever the prompt is to decide, or whatever the deciding factor is to see which video I go to next, I already have a pretty good idea of what the book is about, how my feelings are, and everything like that. So I think I'm okay to choose a prompt. Obviously, you're usually not supposed to do it until you actually finish the book, and usually I will be doing that. But there are extenuating circumstances because I need to skedoodle out of here because I have a 2-hour drive and I just got off work. So let me turn you guys around. Turn around. All right, here's Bailey again where we left off.
And then I just wait here. So if you're still here with me, you need to go, or you've finished your series. But okay, here's what's happening now. So what will happen now is I'm going to tell you if the last book in your series you enjoyed more than the first book, I want you to go this way. And if the last book in the series you enjoyed less than the first book in the series, I want you to go this way.
Okay, so here's the question. Did I like this book better than The Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School? I think that I did. Obviously, I haven't finished this book yet, but my feelings for it are pretty strong. In this case, I do enjoy all the characters more because I didn't love Bo, who was the love interest in the first book. This book is definitely a lot more intense when it comes to like the emotional aspect of it. I'm not yet 100% sure what I'm going to rate it, but I would say I like this book more. Not by like a lot, but I definitely went ahead and liked it a decent amount more. So we're gonna go ahead and pop over here.
Hello, if you are here, you should have read the final book in a series that was rated higher than the first book in that series. And now what I'm going to ask you to do is read a book with a long title, specifically 6 words or more. If you do not have a title available to you that is 6 words or longer, then feel free to just use the longest title available to you on your list.
All right, so you heard it here first. Well, you probably didn't hear it here first. You have maybe seen it other places. But the next prompt is to pick a book with 6 or more words in the title. I just checked all of my audiobooks, and there are a few of them that have 5 words in the title, but none of them have 3. We have a very important visitor here. Oof. The Bean Boy. Tofu, say hi, Tofu. Are you gonna miss me tonight? He's like, no, you're a little bit wet. I know it's raining out. I owe him a dinner before I head out, but let's take a look here. Okay, let me think. 6 words. Do I have any? 1, 2, 3, no, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3. Okay, so there are, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have any books with super long titles. None of them have 6. So let me revisit. I think there was like 2 or 3 audiobooks that had 5 words in the title. I'm going to revisit those real quick, see which one I'm really feeling, and we will go ahead and read that book on our journey. All right, so the 3 options are Didn't See That Coming, which would complete another duology. We have The Brides of High Hill, which is Niveau's novella series. This audiobook would only be 3 hours long, so that would not last me my entire trip. And the other one is a Holly Jolly Ever After, which is, I think, Merry Meet Cute was the first one. This is technically a Christmas book. Like, is it too early? I mean, is it Christmassy? I wouldn't say the first one was very Christmassy. It was more like they were taking part in a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I actually don't even know what this one is about, but I had a lot of fun with A Merry Meet Cute. So part of me wants to do the Niveau one, but I just know that while I'm driving, that listening to that audiobook is not going to work out very well for me. So I'm just finished, well, I'm about to finish a young adult contemporary story. So I'm kind of feeling like the Holly Jolly Ever After book, which, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what that is about, so let me check real quick. All right, so in the first book, the love interest was part of this boy band, and we are now following one of those other boy band members. And this guy has been living a relatively normal life. I guess he was like, you know, the least famous out of all the guys in the boy band, and he just opened his little pizza store. He's living life, but I guess he made a sex tape when he was younger, and this is like resurfaced, and he decides that, you know, he might as well take this momentum and do something with it and become the main love interest in a kind of steamy Christmas movie. And then we are following another woman who I believe it kind of makes it sound like maybe she was involved in Hollywood as well, but she settled down, got married, kind of stayed out of the drama, but something happens where her life just is completely turned on its head, and she decides to redefine her life by being the lead love interest in this movie. And obviously, while they are being all lovey-dovey and steamy on scene, something real happens. So I believe that this book is about 12 hours long, so I'm not sure if I will finish it on the drive down and back. Probably not, but I think it will be a fun time and it'll keep me entertained on my drive. So I will probably check in with you either later tonight or tomorrow morning, depending on how tired I am when I get to the hotel, to wrap up my thoughts about the Golden Boys Guide to Bipolar. Here's my view from my hotel, 9th floor here at the Moxie in downtown Portland. Here is my room. I have the light off right now so that you could get a better look outside, but I just got back. It is probably around 10 o'clock, so I'm gonna get ready for bed and I will give you guys a proper update tomorrow. All right, good morning. It is around 7:30 and I am starting to get ready for the day. I slept okay. I didn't sleep like amazing. The bed itself wasn't terrible. I think I had a problem with the pillows. Last time I traveled, when I did my little Bellingham trip, I actually took my own pillow because I have this special pillow that is a little bit more supportive, and honestly the pillows that I had access to last night felt really small and were like one step above those pillows that you get on an airplane. So I was like, didn't love that. But I did sleep. I think the main problem was it was actually quite cold in this room, and I think I kind of tried to play with the temperature a little bit, but I was kind of confused because it was telling me that it was like 65 degrees, which, like, I think usually at nighttime my house is around, what did we put it down to, like 62, 64. So it's not like it was colder than what I'm used to, but I was a little chilly, and I actually had to sleep with socks and my sweatpants on, and I usually don't sleep with socks on, but I was just like, I'm way too cold, I can't even get comfortable. I'm like freezing here, guys. But I did get a good amount of sleep. I didn't go to bed too late. I think it was like a little bit after 11 o'clock. So we got a decent amount of sleep going on here, and that is good. Anxiety was good as well. If you're new to my channel, I do have like some anxiety related to being alone at night and traveling on my own, but I have done that a couple times now, so feeling good about that. But let's talk about, this is always like leaking all over the place. I don't want to mess their towels up with that. Ugh, tissues. So let's talk about a Golden Boys Guide to Bipolar. So when I checked in with you, essentially I was like, oh, I liked it better than a Catholic girl's guide, or no, a lesbian's guide to Catholic school. I always want to say Catholic girl to being a lesbian. I don't know. That's not what it's called, right? Anyway, I And I stand by that. I did like it better. I kind of looked to see what I ended up rating that other book, and I ended up rating it a 4-star. And I actually feel like I'm gonna rate this a 4-star as well. So technically they kind of have the same rating, but I would say that I enjoyed this one a little bit more just because it didn't have any characters in it that I disliked. And you know, I always say with the Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School that I didn't like Beau, who is her partner in the book. And I don't like dislike them. They weren't my vibe, essentially, is what the problem was. So it's not like I was like, I hate Beau. I was just like, I'm not really feeling Beau. That was the issue. But in this book, we are following Caesar, her brother, and he's technically her younger brother by about 10 months. So like they usually tend to go to the same school. Age-wise, they are very similar. He also has a very high IQ. So he has kind of been slotted for greatness since the very beginning. You know, he was expected to do, you know, wonderful things and go to college and become a doctor or a lawyer, or, you know, invent something and be the next Jeff Bezos or whatever. And he has a lot of mental health issues. A lot. Like, whoo, I thought I had it bad, but this guy was going through it 100%. And this is definitely a book with a lot of trigger warnings, especially for people who are sensitive to like talk about suicidal ideations and things like this, because he definitely is very suicidal throughout this book. Essentially, we are watching someone self-destruct because they are just so mentally unwell that they are expecting to die. They are expecting that they won't have the strength not to kill themselves, and they are trying to make it so that people hate them and will be okay when they're gone, which is obviously a very difficult thing to read about, because he's young and he is angry and he's confused and his mind is doing a lot of self-destructive things because of his bipolar disorder, which for a lot of this book he does not admit that he has. Like, he won't even acknowledge what is wrong with him and therefore won't seek treatment for it, because he's like, well, why do I need to seek treatment for something that I don't have? And the author kind of at the beginning of this book was like, this is someone who is not handling a mental health situation very well, okay? But it is also, unfortunately, a rather realistic look of what people are going through, because most people don't just like see like, oh, I feel like I'm going down a dark path, you know, I just noticed that I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, and that just changed yesterday I started being weird. It's no like months ago I started being weird, years ago I started being weird. Like, as someone who has had mental health issues revolving around mostly anxiety, but also I've had some depressive moments, some moments where I was feeling suicidal. One time it was just because of my brain. Another time it was due to medication changes that I was making. Like, you don't just acknowledge that and just like be like, oops, that's happening like right now and I'm gonna do something about it. You just sometimes it takes you like a little while to kind of catch up with the destructive things that your brain is doing, and sometimes it's honestly the people around you who really are like, what the fuck is going on here, guys? Like, what's happening right now? Like, this isn't you. And it's very easy to be like in denial, especially like him. He's like, I have people who love me, I'm smart, like my life isn't bad. Like, honestly, I have no reason to be bummed out. I have no reason to be so self-destructive. I have no reason to want to die. So I don't know, like, oh well, I guess I'll just keep going and feeling this way. Been there, done that. So I mean, there was like a lot of relatable stuff going on with this character, but also he was in a manic episode essentially for a lot of this book, and he was doing a lot of frustrating things because of that. So it's a difficult book to read, one because it's so real and raw, but also because you want to take this character and like strangle them a little bit because they're just being a big pain in the ass I mean, hurting their support system. Essentially, he has this great support system, but he is hurting like one by one every single person in his support system and pushing them away. And for the majority of this book, he's not getting better. Like, he's getting worse. Okay, so this isn't some sort of upward trajectory mental health success story. Like, even in the end, he's like, I'm new to this, I'm new to, you know, having bipolar disorder. I really need to like sit here and be like, am I having a manic episode right now? Like, the meds that I'm using, like, I still have to like switch around meds to see what works for me. And so it very much, I think, is a story that people who are going through a mental health crisis would probably relate to, because it really shows that this is a continuous journey. Like, he's like, I'm going to be on meds for the rest of my life. I will have manic episodes in the future. I might try to self-destruct again in the future, despite everything I've learned from this situation. And unfortunately, you know, with mental health, no matter how good it is, how good it gets, we relapse in a way, because, you know, again, as someone who has mental health issues, sometimes you're just like doing great and everything's fine and dandy, and then all of a sudden you're like, I've never been more anxious in my life. So I mean, these things, they come and go in waves, as they say. So I mean, a lot of things I liked about this book. I'm gonna like, I gotta do my eyebrows, guys. Hello? Okay. So what was I saying before I got interrupted by my splotchy, I'm losing too much hair eyebrows. Let's see. Now, a 4-star, part of it feels like too low of a rating. Like, there was definitely a part of this book that made me tear up, and I knew it would. Like, going into this book, I was just like reading the synopsis, and I was like, there's just no way that I could read a book that is so intense when it comes to mental health representation and not tear up, because like, there's just gonna be these like heart-wrenching conversations, and there is. We have a young man, a child, who's telling his mother, I'm sorry, but I fully expected that I was going to leave you, and I needed you to be okay when I left, essentially. And that's a really hard thing to read. And so I was like, oh, this, you know, would probably be a relatively high-rated book for me. But the rating, and I feel like I'm being like kind of all over the place because I'm multitasking while I'm doing this review, which is like usually not what I do. So it's not like what my brain is super comfortable with. But I feel like the issue with this book is not really the book itself, because I could really appreciate what it was doing, showing our character having a realistic mental health crisis, having a realistic response to a mental health crisis, seeing the people around him kind of trying to help, and the more that he self-destructs, kind of not knowing what to do and getting more and more desperate, and that in a way pushing him even more into his mental health crisis, because he feels like those who are around him are are turning on him, which is what he wants, but at the same time it's hard for him to see his loved ones do that. And then we also see like the religious trauma, because he is a Catholic. I always get Christians and Catholics mixed up because they sound so similar and I can never remember. I want to say he's Catholic, and obviously he has been told, like when he goes to the priest and he's like, hey, you know, just wanted to let you know that I'm in love with a man, essentially. And they're like, well, that's a sin, and if you act on that, there is literally no amount of good deeds you can do to not go to hell if you like men. And if I had a son who went to a school and he told, it was a Catholic school, but like if he goes to a school and talks to the priest and they told him that, I would walk onto that campus and start swinging. I'm not even kidding. What do you mean you tell a child that because of who they love? It doesn't matter if they go to food banks, if they become a doctor, if they say, you know, create the cure to cancer, they're still going to hell just because of that one minuscule thing that isn't actually a problem. Like, oh my gosh. And obviously our character really took that to heart, and it didn't help that apparently during manic episodes a lot of people speak to God. He was like, God spoke to me, like he literally spoke to me. And a lot of people who went through manic episodes were like, yeah, he spoke to me while I was in a manic episode too. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that makes sense, you know, because there's a lot of like delusion and stuff happening while someone is in a manic episode, a lot of hearing voices and things like that. And I mean, hearing some disembodied voice, it makes sense that the human brain would be like, oh, that's God. That's like the disembodied voices of all disembodied voices. That's like the king of all disembodied voices. So, I mean, there's a lot of religious trauma that, like, he doesn't 100% work through it. He does a little bit. He kind of is like, hey, I understand that my relationship with God and religion is really complicated, and that's something that I'm gonna have to work through. But essentially, like, this book is just him finding the strength, essentially, to stay alive long enough to, like, actually work on that stuff. So good stuff happening, meeting some new people, starting like group therapy, working on medications, kind of reconnecting with family. Like, he's not the only one who's going through stuff. There's people around him who are going through stuff. So this book really kind of does a lot that I like. But like I said, the thing that I struggled with, I think, was the way I decided to read this book. And I'm not talking about the fact that I listened to it via audiobook. That's not a problem at all. In fact, I really liked the audiobook because, like, when the narrator was talking about scenes like where the character was crying and he sounded like he was crying, and when the character was angry, the narrator really sounded angry. Like, he was really good at projecting this character's emotions and really bringing it all to life, which was fabulous. But I decided that I was gonna try and read it all in one day because, you know, we're in a readathon and I'm trying to like get through all these books really quickly, and that's just not really how I like to read, because I just feel like finishing a book in one day and just like reading it for a whole day, just sitting down at work, getting through 8 hours of it within like an 8-hour span. It just, I don't know, it just kind of takes me time to fall into a book and fall for a character. Like, this is a book that I could have spent a few days with, and I spent only one day with it, and I feel like that just left the book less impactful for me because I didn't have time to really get grounded in the story, to spend a lot of time with the character. Like, obviously the amount of time I spent with the character was the same amount of time that I would have spent with them if I read it over a few days because the audiobook is still the same length, but the amount of time that my brain has with the character, like to read a few chapters and kind of sit with what happened and then go back to the story and then sit with what happened and then go back to the story, I didn't get that. And I think that's something that I need, because to me it almost felt like watching like a movie, and I don't get like as attached to movie characters, and I easily and quickly forget what happened in movies because it's just not enough time for my brain to like actually absorb anything. And that's why I always feel kind of bad for people who read books in one day. They're like, I read a book a day, and you know, I get their brain probably works different than mine, so this probably doesn't apply to them. But if I read a book a day, I just wouldn't have as deep or meaningful an experience with any of the stories that I was reading. So I don't know if that makes any sense. Also, I want to point out that I look a lot paler in this than I do in the mirror. So I'm pale, but I'm not that pale. Anyway, let's sit down and really think about what I'm trying to say here, guys. Let's sit down and just have like a little brain moment at our tiny little desk here. What I'm trying to say is the reason that I only gave this 4 stars is because I didn't have time to really marinate in this story. I mean, I am a slower reader, and you know, sometimes I complain about that, but after this experience, and honestly, it's something that I've noticed like a few times during readathons where I'm like really kind of trying to pump out the books, is that I think I just am meant to be a slower reader. I'm just meant to spend a little bit more time with the text and with the characters so that I really grow to love them, and get to spend a few days with them instead of just spending like one work shift with them. Because at the end of the day, one work shift is like, it may seem long, especially on a Friday, but it isn't that long. And so I feel like I missed an opportunity with this book to really like connect with this character, especially since he's someone that I can relate to because of the mental health issues that he's going through. I mean, I'm very happy to say that I've never gotten like as bad as him. But obviously I've had highs and lows when it comes to my mental health, and there have definitely been negative impacts on my life because of the actions that I took or the decisions that I made during those lows. So I just feel like maybe this is a book that I need to revisit someday just so that I can get a little bit more out of it. I mean, just based off of my reading experience, I almost feel like it could be a 5-star read. It just really felt like as soon as I finished it that I was already starting to just move on. Like, I feel like this shouldn't be a story that I'm just moving on from, but because of the lack of amount of time that I had to sit with the story and digest it step by step, I was listening to this book on 2 times speed, and I was listening it all in one kind of sitting almost. And so I think that decision was a little detrimental to my enjoyment of the story. And I mean, that's just what happens during readathons. That's probably why I don't take part in readathons as often, unless I really love the readathons, like Squash That series I really enjoy. And there's a lot of books that I could read very quickly and would still have a good time with them, you know, more shallow books I would say, but like a book like this that's really deep and thought-provoking probably was not the best choice for this. So it does feel like a 4-star, which may seem weird because I was just like, well, it could be a 5-star. So you're like, why don't you make it like a 4.5? It just, it feels like a 4-star. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from it, unfortunately. And I feel like even my review of the story isn't what I would want it to be if I spent more time with the story and if I gave you updates throughout my reading experience, because I never gave you an update because I was just powering through it. I don't know. I feel like this wrap up was kind of weird, and I feel like this whole beginning of the vlog felt very like rushed. And a little bit frantic, and I think that is due to, you know, the traveling that I was doing here. So hopefully once today's over and I get home, I can settle into this readathon a little bit more and settle into this vlog a little bit more. Right now I'm kind of like go go go, but yeah, so I mean, it was a really good book. It was a really, really good book, and as long as the trigger warnings don't bother you, I definitely think that it's worth checking out for sure. Even though this is a companion novel, I do think it would be better to read The Lesbian's Guide to Catholic School first, just because they reference like a few things that were talked about more in depth in that book. And I feel like my allergies are starting to like kick in a little bit. My nose is like, hello. So sorry, I think that's my cue to stop talking. But yeah, no, I feel like that was a really crappy review. I'm gonna be honest. I was just yapping for the sake of yapping, because I went into this review literally not knowing what I was gonna say, because I spent so little time with this book that I just feel like I didn't have the time to actually like develop any thoughts for it. And even though I was like, okay, I'm gonna sleep on it and everything, but no, that didn't help at all. I read the book too quick. That's like the moral of the story. I just read this book too quickly, but it was a good time and I really enjoyed it, and I could definitely see myself revisiting this book and really just kind of savoring it a little bit more. So, I mean, I suck at rereading. It's not something I do very often, but I hope that one day I take the time to do that. So here's to that. So I would say not too bad of a start to the readathon, starting with a 4-star, finishing up a series. That's a good way to start. I do just want to make sure that even though I'm trying to finish all these books quickly, that I'm still enjoying the books and enjoying the reading experience and not like rushing through it. Obviously this readathon technically has a cutoff, but you know, Bailey was saying like you take all the time you need, and I just feel like, okay, we need to keep that in mind, that we don't have to finish it by the 16th or 17th, whenever this actually ends. We can spend a little bit more time with the books we're reading. As far as the other book that I ended up choosing, the Holly Jolly Ever After or whatever, I did not end up starting that. I have not started that yet. I was actually going to start it while I got ready, but I ended up yapping to you instead for the last 30 minutes. So that obviously didn't happen. So I probably won't start that until I start my drive back up to my house later today. So I'm gonna go ahead and get finished getting ready for the Portland Book Festival. I'm really excited, or book fair or whatever it's called. I'm really excited to do that today, spend some time with my friend. Last night I met up with a friend as well. For some reason, all my friends are like 2 hours away. They're either here in Vancouver, Portland area, or up in Bellingham. I'm like, I don't have any like in-person friends like where I live, so I really need to figure out how to meet some new people in my vicinity. So with that being said, this was a very chatty part of the vlog. I mean, this whole vlog is going to be really chatty, but I cannot spend 30 minutes wrapping up a book, otherwise this video will be like 3 hours long. So I'm gonna sign off here, and I will check in with you once I'm around 50% through my current read. This time I will actually check in with you when I am halfway through, unlike with this book.
This panel, which is called American Marketing. It will be conversations between Omar El-Akid and Karen Russell.
I do a lot of audiobooks because...
All right, everyone, we are on the floor. Don't ask me why. That is just where we ended up. So I am home. We have survived a long drive, though it did not seem too long because I was enjoying my audiobook. Yay! So I did go ahead and read that the entire time that I was driving back. So I did get 3 hours through it, as well as 27% through it. Now I actually ended up, I usually listen to my audiobooks on 2 times speed, and I reduced it to 1.75 speed because I feel like the people in this audiobook, they just kind of talk faster than your average audiobook. I mean, some narrators talk faster and slower, but this one, the characters are really like they're yapping and they're yapping fast. So I did slow it down a little bit, but oh my god. I forgot how much fun I had with the first book, how much fun I have with these authors, with their characters, with their writing. I am laughing, I'm giggling. I was in my car, I was like, yeah, I was like gripping the steering wheel. I was like, Natalie, don't you dare crash this car. Just because you're having such a good time, you know, going out on a high kind of situation. But I am having a ball with this book. I really am. I just think they are so funny. And they are also rather sexy. They are pretty sexy. I mean, this is Sierra Simone and Julie Murphy. Is that the other one? Julia Murphy? I'm like 90% sure. I don't think Sierra Simone, I have read other books by her book Saint, and then I tried to read Sinner, but I ended up DNFing it because it was like, ugh. But otherwise, I really like her as an author, and she does smut really good. And Julie Murphy or Julia Murphy or whatever her name is, I'm not sure yet because I don't think I've ever read any of her other stuff other than the Marry Meet Cute, where they partnered up again as authors. And honestly, these two work excellent together. I'm like, y'all really know how to write together. I mean, I don't know exactly how they do it, if one of them writes the male POV and the other one the female, if they are both writing the book together. I have no idea how 2 people write one book, to be honest. But whatever they're doing, it is working. So in this book, don't ask me for character names because when it comes to audiobooks, I don't know anyone's name. It's just in one ear and out the other. So we are following 2 characters. Like I mentioned, one of them is from a boy band, and he was actually like the least popular of all of them. You know, when it came to the fangirls, he was the least likely to be the imaginary boyfriend for them. And afterwards, he was the only of the 3 to not get a deal for a solo career. So he went home and opened up a pizza franchise, and he's been doing pretty good. However, he ended up filming a sex tape, and it ended up getting leaked. And he decides to kind of ride this high because he's getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of people who are like, oh my god, daddy. And he's like, you know what, I never had this when I was younger, and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it. And after he gets asked to be on this kind of experimental movie that is going to be on the Christmas channel, but it's gonna be, I think it's called like After Dark or something. So it's gonna be Christmas movies but make it smutty. He's like, yes, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do it. We're going for it. And then we have our other character, and she was kind of like America's sweetheart, but her reputation kind of got bashed, not because of anything that she did, but just because of like situations that other people got her in and other miscommunications. She has epilepsy, I believe it was narcolepsy, I think. So there was like one time where she never told anyone that she has it. And there was one time where she was having an episode and she fell asleep in the back of a car, and someone took a picture of her, and everyone assumed that she had like passed out drunk or something. And so there was a lot of things that happened in her life that just made her seem like she was just this mess, when really she was kind of a mess, but not like in a bad way, but in like she was dealing with like a cheating husband, and the fact that she was dealing with a chronic illness and not telling anyone about it kind of situation, and didn't have supportive parents, things like that. And she's kind of at this point where she's like, you know what, I'm tired of people wanting me to be this one thing and saying I'm failing at it. I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna do something new and crazy, and I'm just gonna live my life. And when she gets offered the opportunity to be in this smutty Santa movie, she takes it. And he actually had a crush on her when they were younger, because they were obviously both child stars or teen stars, and so they have crossed paths with each other. And he's really excited to be working with her. And she is really nervous to be here because she grew up in a very Puritan lifestyle. Like, she had a purity ring, she saved herself for marriage and everything. And when she is this poor woman, essentially, obviously it's a smutty movie, and they're like, all right, you know, let's see you pretend to orgasm. And she's like, yeah, here we go. And someone was like, oh my god, this poor girl. They're like, we need to call a priest for an exorcist. She's like, what, did I look like I was possessed? And they're like, well, like, how do you usually look, how, like, when you orgasm? And she's like, she realizes, she's like, I've never done that. And I was like, girl, you've been more, she was married for 14 years, and her trashy husband never got her off once. And then he has the audacity to go cheat on her. Like, you can't even please one woman. What are you doing trying to please another? Anyway, let's just say it's a good thing she's got a hot guy around to change that, to teach her. So that's where I ended. That's where I got to, where they are just getting on set. There was a lot of chemistry, and they just had their first smut scene, and it was mind-blowing for her. She was like, that was great. 32 years old, and I've missed out. I've missed out. Okay, I have a feeling that she's gonna be coming back for more. So I've been having a great time with it. Like I said, I'm 27% through it. I am listening to an audiobook, which I usually don't do that much unless I'm traveling in a car, which I'm not gonna be doing. So I will just have to figure out a way to listen to this audiobook, because obviously I want to go ahead and finish it up so that I can go ahead and move on to some physical reads, because I will probably be trying to prioritize those for the rest of this readathon. But so far, this book is going fantastic. I'm having a fabulous time with it. I'm really glad that I decided to pick this one up. And they're not, like, despite the fact that they're technically doing Christmas movies, filming Christmas movies, these books are like not overly Christmassy. So, you know, even though here in the beginning of November, for me, not for everyone, for me, it's like a little too early to be getting into the Christmas spirit, this book still is hitting all the right notes. So thank you so much for listening to me do another 30-minute wrap up, another 30-minute update, I guess, because this wasn't all wrap up, but I will try to keep it shorter moving forward. Did I say that last time? I really hope I didn't say that last time, because I would have been lying. But I am going to go ahead and take my makeup off and get out of these jeans and into something comfy. It is Saturday night. Luckily, I have tomorrow to recover from my traveling, and I will check in with you once I officially finish this book. All right, hello book lovers. It is Sunday evening, and surprisingly, I am here to tell you that it is time to pick our next prompt, because I have finished A Holly Jolly Ever After. I think that's what it's called. I was not expecting to finish this book this weekend, but I went for a nice long walk this morning, and then I just decided I didn't have anything else to do, and I was kind of exhausted from all my traveling and socializing, so I did kind of redecorate my shelves just a smidge. Essentially, I took down the Halloween stuff and just filled out some of the spots with some extra fall decorations, but I am logging into my computer right now, hence why I am walking all over the place. Hi guys. All right, so let's see. We're going to pull this up, and while I do that, I'm going to give you my final thoughts about the book. So I think the first half of the book is a lot stronger, and I'm going to spoil something here. So if you don't want to know anything, it's just a little bit, I don't want to say like it's a trigger warning, but it's like a just in case you don't like this kind of situation. Spoilers, so you can skedoodle if you don't want to see that. But essentially, this does have the surprise pregnancy trope in it. And that did take up almost the second half of the book. I want to say at least the last 40% of the book. And I'm not going to say I hated it or anything, because I didn't. I think that it was okay. It was fine and everything. And there was still other stuff going on in the story that I continued to enjoy. However, I would definitely say that the first half of the book was a lot stronger. That being said, I mean, honestly, when I was reading that first half, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a 5-star read. It's going to be a 5-star read. And now I'm like, do I want to make it a 4.5-star read? Do I want to make it a 4-star? I mean, I just finished it, so I'm like, maybe I want to sit with it a little bit more, but it just was such a fun read. And the fact that I just so easily spent like the whole day immersed in the story, that I was just so happy to be spending time with these characters, even if I didn't love the pregnancy direction of the story. I do think I have to give it 4.5 stars because it was just so much fun. Oh my gosh. It was like, it literally had me like laughing and smiling so much. And I just really adored these characters. I really love the writing. And we just have like this group of people that is constantly being thrown back together because they're, you know, taking part in these Christmas movies that are being put on by a porn company. Or at least, you know, the guy who owns the rights to the movies or whatever, he also owns a porn company. And so, yeah, there's a lot of crossover. But it's just a fun scenario and it's just a fun series. And it's definitely one I think I will go ahead and revisit around Christmas time. I mean, I know that I could technically, it doesn't need to be around Christmas time. The next book I think is going to be another novella because it's 2.5. And it seems like the novellas are always queer because the first one was between the owner, the porn guy's son, and the costume creator, and that was a male romance. And this one seems like it's gonna be between our character's best friend as well as a female bodyguard, so it's definitely going down a sapphic route. And then there's one more book that's out that is following the third band member, and I'm kind of scared to read his story because he doesn't make a lot of appearances in this because he, I guess, got married to his like sweetheart and she died when they were very young, and he has been grieving the loss of her like throughout all of these books and has been very much like off the face of the earth kind of situation. So I have a feeling that his book is going to be kind of sad because he obviously loved his wife very much and did not take her death very well at all. It did seem, because I read the synopsis, that it's going to be between him and, I don't remember, I know she's popped up throughout the story, but sometimes there's just like so many characters that I can't like keep track of like who is who. She seems to be a script writer though, of sorts. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about that book. I'm just saying I'm going to definitely continue the series because I have so much fun with it. So I do think I'm going to give this a 4.5 just out of pure enjoyment, even if the plot took a direction I didn't love. One thing I will say is that throughout the story, our main male love interest definitely was still acting a little bit immature. You know, he was sleeping around with bridesmaids and everything, and he had that porno that came out and everything, even though it was, you know, just like leaked. That's the word I'm looking for. It leaked and everything, but he himself just wasn't the most mature person. And Obviously, by doing this movie, it didn't like super increase his maturity. However, once his partner became pregnant, she kind of struggled with the fact that she didn't really have anyone reliable in her life other than her best friend, and she has had a lot of people in her life she expected to be reliable and then they weren't, and sometimes his behavior made her really question if he was someone that she wanted to raise a child with. And she never doubted that he would be a good father. She was like, he would be a good father, but is he someone that I want as a life partner? So I really like the fact that she put so much time and thought into whether or not them being in like a committed relationship rather than just co-parenting was what was best for her and the child. And I really liked that he was so patient while she tried to kind of figure all of that out. So I think that the direction the story went was not what I expected, but I feel like it made sense and that the authors did a good job with it. So I did have a good time with it. I think I am going to settle on the 4.5, and I'm excited to continue with this series because I don't know what it is. They're like crack. It's like once I start listening to it, I don't want to put it down, okay? I just keep wanting to listen to it hour after hour after hour. I was just playing Candy Crush and listening to this audiobook. So that being said, let me turn you around real quick. All right, so I am back with Adriana here. I hope I pronounced her name right. Let's see your next adventure.
Later.
Now that you're back, if your book ended on an odd number page, I will have you click on the odd number video. And if it ended on an even number page, I will have you click on an even numbered video. So pretty straightforward. Click on the correct one.
So, I mean, obviously my book doesn't have page numbers, but let me either see if I can figure it out. I might have to use whatever number is on Goodreads. All right, so good news. My library had the ebook, so I actually ended up downloading that real quick just to see like what the actual last page is, because I know sometimes there's like extra content and whatnot. So the final page was 417, which makes it a odd number. So let's go ahead and click on the odd number prompt. All right, so here we go. Odd page with Lizzie.
That your last book ended on an odd page number. If that's true, you're in the right spot. My name is Lizzie. My channel is Lizzie's Literary Life. I love Squash That series. I love Bailey. And I'm so glad you're here and you found your way to my prompt. Your next prompt is to read the next book in the series you've been working on the longest. Now, this is like series you've been actively working on. So like if you've decided to DNF a series, not on the list anymore. But like, oh, I started this series 4 years ago and I'm still working on it. Next book in that series, you gotta read it.
All right, guys, I'm sorry if you can hear my parents talking. They are cooking dinner, and seeing as I don't have to be cooking dinner, I'm not gonna complain about the noise that they're making while they're cooking dinner. That being said, you heard it here. The prompt is to continue in a series that is one of the longest you have been working on. Now, I have a spreadsheet where I kind of track which books or which series I started every year. And I started this in 2022, and I have one section that is called pre-2022 series, meaning most likely that I started them in 2021. And there are 3 series that are under that category. One of them I am caught up on. The other one I am technically not caught up on, but there is still one more book that needs to be released, and I have decided, because it's the Heartstopper series, that I am going to go ahead and hold off on reading that book. And then once the last book in the series comes out, just reread the whole series. So there's only one series on there that I'm like actively working on right now, and that is the Dark Rise series by C.S. Pacat. So I will be picking up Dark Air. So this is the second book in this young adult fantasy series that a author I really love is writing. This will catch me up on this series, despite the fact that I started this this book, or for the first time read book 1 in 2021 or something. The second book, I believe, came out last year. You know what? You can check. It's in the book. You can check when it came out. It came out in 2023. See, I knew I put off reading this book, but I didn't know I put it off that long. Whoops. Yeah, so I did reread book 1 earlier this year in preparation of reading this book. So I definitely knew that I was going to be prioritizing this during this readathon. In fact, it is another book that is on my monthly TBR that I chose while playing my TBR game. Now, I will admit I always struggle to give a synopsis for this book. So the main things you need to know is that our main character is Will, the guy on this cover. However, in the first book, we did get other perspectives. The other main perspective is his friend Violet, and they meet at the beginning of book 1. And technically, they should be enemies because her family was hunting Will after killing his mother at the beginning of that story. However, she didn't know that was going on. She was as unaware as Will was of this kind of magical part of society. And after she kind of finds out that her family is doing this, she ends up helping with his rescue and leaves with him to join this order that is set on protecting the world from darkness. So the main kind of conflict of the story is that many centuries ago, there was a war between light and dark, and light ended up winning and killing the dark king. However, there are people, Violet's family specifically, who are looking to raise the Dark King again. And so this order is looking to prepare for another war. Unfortunately, their numbers have dwindled dramatically over the centuries, and they are definitely not set up to win again. So Will and Violet start to kind of join this order and see what they can do to help. While we're kind of following them as they learn more about magic and this world and themselves, we start to see that the world is kind of doing that whole Wheel of Time thing, like from the books Wheel of Time, where things just end up repeating themselves time and time again. There are people that are reincarnations of those who took part in this war. There are people who are the descendants of people who took part in this war. We are really seeing a repeat of events that happened many centuries ago. And while it's not the most original setup, I did have a really good time with it. I think C.S. Pacat does a really good job with world building. This is set in a historical London is probably, it's somewhere in England, I believe, but it is a historical setting. And I think that the author took a lot of time kind of building this world and doing research. As someone who follows them on social media, I know for a fact that they spent a lot of time. All right, sorry, I had to move because you were leaning against that little pumpkin, but because he's made out of fabric, the phone was too heavy, and so he kept like slipping back and you kept falling. So now you're against some solid books. But that being said, what was I talking about? World building. C.S. Pacat is really good at that. Hence why, despite the fact that I read the first book in 2021, only the first 2 books in this series are out. C.S. Pacat is definitely not the kind of author to be putting out 1 book a year or anything, and they are well worth the wait, trust me. So I am really excited to read this because not too much actually happened in the first book. It was definitely a setup book, you know, the world building, the character development, explaining different character relationships, and watching as characters learn certain things about themselves. The ending of the first book was very intriguing. It is definitely the kind of ending that has you excited to see what happens next. I think that we are definitely gonna be seeing a lot more action in this book. I've heard people saying that this book is better than the first one, so I'm really excited by that. I will say sometimes when you go into a second book of a series, the second book feels a little bit weaker. However, Prince's Gambit of the Captive Prince trilogy is my favorite, so I trust C.S. Beckett with a second book in a series. I know they know what to do with it, okay? So I'm really excited to see what happens. I'm hoping, almost based off what happens in the end of the first book, that maybe we'll get some more flashbacks to the First War, because I am kind of interested to see some of the characters we saw in the first book and the role that they played in that old war, because like I said, it was kind of those reincarnations as well as ancestors who have been told stories of those who came before them kind of situation. So I'm really intrigued by that. I'm hoping we get a little bit more action. There is not a romance or anything, but this really interesting dynamic between Will and this character named James that I'm hoping that we explore a little bit more. And I'm also just excited to see Violet and Will, because I absolutely adore their friendship. So I'm excited to see some more of them here in this book. And hopefully it is a relatively quick read. I mean, it has pretty huge margins. I mean, look at the margins on that. I mean, that's pretty big. Like I said, this is a young adult, so even though it is a fantasy and a pretty in-depth fantasy, it is still a relatively quick read. So I will check in with you probably around 240-ish pages, because I think it is around 480 pages long. So I'll check in with you around that 50% mark. And I feel like this is the first book that I'm reading that is really a continuation of a series and not a companion novel. So I probably won't have too much to tell you, because obviously we don't want to get into spoiler territory or anything like that, but I'll still give you some vague vibes. Anything that I can tell you that isn't spoilery. So I will go ahead and check in with you whenever I am halfway through this book. You know, I was just about to write my review for Holly Jolly Ever After, and I just realized that I didn't really talk about the narcolepsy rep in here. I really hope I'm saying that right. That sounds wrong. But essentially, I think it is narcolepsy, where she like just sometimes gets so tired that she just like falls asleep. Like she literally can't stay awake or anything. The one thing that I thought was weird is I don't know if she ever told her love interest that she had that. Like they never had a discussion about that or anything. So I kind of feel like it was part of the story, but the authors kind of kept forgetting that she had it. And so they never like sat down and she wasn't like, oh, I have narcolepsy. I just wanted to let you know, and this is something that I would need, or this is like from you, or what you can expect, or anything like that. So I'm actually not sure if she ever talked to him about that, and I feel like that would be kind of important, especially because her parents never let her tell anyone, because they were kind of like ashamed of the fact that she had this, and so she spent her entire career never telling anyone that she had this disability. And so I just feel like it's weird that the author didn't take some time for her to talk to her lover about that, and to have that experience of someone knowing about her disability and not wanting to hide it or judge her for it. So I thought it was a little weird that that wasn't in the book, but I just thought of that. But I don't think I'm going to change my rating. Yeah, I'm still going to stick with a 4.5, just because it was so much fun. So, but I just wanted to go ahead and point that out in case you were hoping to get narcolepsy rep. I'm not saying it was bad representation. Obviously, I don't know. I don't have narcolepsy or anything like that, and I haven't read any reviews. I just thought it was weird that they never had that conversation. So I just wanted to jump in and mention that real quick. So, yay. This little cannibal, I made the mistake of leaving this little guy on my bed, and he is now a full-blown amputee. He ate his whole leg. This was already damaged. Fingers, horns, ears. I mean, I don't even know why I keep him at this point. His wing, I know I should just get rid of him and put him out of his misery, since this guy is slowly consuming him. But he was a gift from my sister and he's so cute. So I will keep him till his last fiber is consumed. Huh? What do you have to say for yourself? What do you have to say? He's like, I was hungry. That's what I have to say. I was hungry. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. You were hungry. You're just a little chunk of junk. Yes, you are. Chunk of junk. Yes. Ooh. This is my second time filming this because I was about 10 minutes into a check-in when I was just like, what am I saying? I just feel like this entire vlog, I'm just like talking and talking and talking and just like spewing words. And I'm like, okay, let's just take a deep breath and just think a little bit here about what we really want to say. So I am here for my 50% check-in for Dark Air. Now, what I realized is that I'm not actually 50% through this book. I'm 20 pages away from being 50% through. For some reason, I had told myself that there are 440 pages in here, and so I needed to get to page 220, which I am at. However, there's actually 480 pages, so I need to get to 240. But I decided since I'm here, I'm just gonna go ahead and do a check-in. Now, like I mentioned, because this is the second book in a series, I'm gonna be relatively vague. There's really not much I can tell you. I can't even really tell you too much about the plot, or too much about like the characters or the situations they're in, because talking even about that can hint at things that have happened in the first book. So it's always really difficult to talk about sequels. However, what I will say is I'm having a really good time with this book, even though I'm not getting through it quite as quickly as I thought I would, considering that, you know, the margins are relatively big and it is young adult. It is still, I would say, kind of a high fantasy story, and so I want to make sure that I'm not rushing it, because I want to make sure that I'm absorbing all the world building that the author is providing. And we definitely are seeing a big expansion in the world through this second book here. In the first book, we were kind of confined to two locations, which was London, where we first met Will, as well as the Hall of the Stewards. And the Stewards are the order that I mentioned, I believe, when I was talking about the synopsis of this book. And they are the protectors of the light, and they took Violet and Will in to start to train them to also fight against the dark. But in this book, we are starting to see our characters move to locations a little bit outside of that hall, and through doing that, we are also starting to learn a little bit more about the past, specifically like the first war that happened between light and dark. So far, we've really just had little snippets, and the three ways we have been hearing about the past, I think it's kind of interesting that we're learning about the past in three different ways. Is one, that Will is having these flashbacks to that time because he has a connection to the past. I'm not really going to say how, but he does, and essentially he is having some flashbacks through dreams specifically, and sometimes when he encounters places, or sometimes when he encounters certain places that were important to people in the past, he also in a way kind of sees almost like visions of things that had happened there. The second way is that right now, Will and some of his friends are at an archaeological site in Italy, which is really cool. I really like that setting. And there is a historian there that is said to be kind of expert on the Dark King. And Will has had some conversations with him. And obviously, as they are digging at this archaeological site, there is more to learn. And third, there is a new perspective in this book, which I feel like isn't spoilery to say because they play like no role in the first book. And essentially it's just another person who has been reborn. I mentioned that there are people that are descendants of people who were in this initial war, and then there are those who are reborn, who are literally like the people from the war being reincarnated. And we have another character who is being reborn and obviously has not been on Earth for thousands of years since this war has occurred, and is very unfamiliar with the setting, but very familiar with the actual war that occurred. So it's kind of interesting learning more about the past in those three different ways, and I'm really enjoying that. On top of that, we continue to see our characters develop their powers a little bit more, kind of learning what they can do, and also kind of learning what other people within the world can do, really expanding the magic system within this, which is really interesting. The one thing I will say that at first I didn't like was the fact that Will and Violet kind of went their separate ways. They had to go on their own little missions in a way, I guess you could say. And while Will is in Italy right now, Violet, I believe, has just landed in France. And at first I was like, oh, what a bummer. You know, I love the two of them together. They're like siblings. They are very protective of each other. I love their relationship. I don't like seeing them apart. But as the world and everything continues to grow, and I see just how much I and the characters need to learn, I think it was a really smart move on the author to kind of take multiple characters and kind of send them to different corners of, well, not really the world, but Europe, so that we can really grow the world through them. So I do think that was a smart move, and all of them I think are on very interesting paths. So I'm really intrigued to see where the story goes. Things are definitely escalating, where you can kind of sense the presence of this Dark King growing, and you really get to see kind of like what a threat he is. And I'm honestly very curious because right now it looks like our characters are definitely the underdog. The numbers of people that were on their side was heavily decimated in the first book, and they're really struggling to find allies throughout this book. And I'm just kind of curious to see, because it was always that the Stuarts, like I said, are very much in their hall, but like outside in the human world, the Stuarts seem to have very few connections or support. It was very much those who were looking to bring the Dark King back that have been expanding their power throughout the world, and we're really starting to see the negative impacts of that in this book, where our characters very much, once they're outside of their safe little bubble, definitely are not in a very strong position. So I'm interested to see what they do with this. I'm interested to continue to see the world and the magic expand. I'm always looking forward to learning more about the past. James and Will have been spending a good portion of this book together, and I've always been really interested in their relationship. We didn't have too much of that in the first book, so seeing them spend more time together in this book, their dynamic is really interesting, and obviously I can't really tell you why, but it's very addictive to read about the two of them. And yeah, I am having a good time, so that's good. I definitely want to get to the 50% mark today. That was kind of my goal. Of course, I was kind of hoping that I would surpass this because I was off work today. I was like, all I'm gonna do today is read, but then I ended up sleeping in, and then I ended up going to the gym, and then going to the grocery store, you know, and showering, doing a full body shower, which always takes at least 20 or so minutes. So what can I say? The day got away from me, but I do want to at least get 50% through this book. And then unfortunately it is back to work tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. So I'm trying to think, if I'm being completely realistic, it would be nice if I finish this book by Thursday. that would be really great. The latest would be Friday, and then I do believe I still have the whole weekend, but this is only my third book. So Thursday would be better because it would give me a little bit more time to get in some more reading. Because like I said, I would love to finish this readathon by the time the readathon ends, but if I don't, I am going to go ahead and just continue on until I do actually read all the books that I need to. But that being said, I do have a book that I need to read by the end of the month because of a book club, so we can't be going on forever and ever with this. But I am very happy to say that this is going well for me. It did take me just like a smidge of time to get into it. It was like my brain was really struggling to get into a fantasy book, but now that, you know, I'm a couple hundred pages in, things are definitely going a little bit quicker. So hopefully I'll be checking in with you in the next couple of days to let you know my final thoughts and to choose the next book. I'm gonna need someone to give me a time machine so I can go into the future to when the third book in the series is available. Because what do you mean? What do you mean that I have to wait months, if not years? Because I mean, I checked Goodreads. It doesn't have an expected date. No year. It doesn't say coming out in 2026, 2027. Nothing. I need the next book right now. I need it in my hands. C.S. Pacat, I try to be patient. Okay, I understand your work is very detailed, time consuming, and it's always worth it, but I'm literally begging you not to make me wait too long for the next book in the series. So this is getting 5 stars. Okay, I was a little worried. I was a little worried in the beginning because it was taking me a little while to get into it. But I think it just always takes me a little while to get into fantasy because no matter how much I say I'm a fantasy girly, I don't read super intense, in-depth fantasy very often. So my brain needed a little bit of time to like adapt to the story, and oh my gosh, that ending, what do you mean? Oh, okay, I really can't say much other than so much was happening in this book. We were just learning so much and so many pieces were moving and everything was just falling apart in the end, and I needed to be put back together, okay? C.S. Pacat, they knew when they put this book out that we were gonna read it, and then we were gonna have to wait for the next book. They knew that, and they still wrote that ending. That's kind of rude. That is kind of rude. Wow, amazing. I don't know what it is about C.S. Pacat. I think it's just the characters that they write and their relationships. Their relationships are always so messy and complicated, and she just breaks her characters apart and then puts them back together and then breaks them apart and puts them back together, and then she just leaves them broken at the end of the book. And I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. But oh my gosh. I mean, it is Wednesday evening. I thought maybe I would finish this on Thursday. And I was like, I'll probably finish it on Friday. No, I finished it today. I read it all. I did not want to put this book down because the stakes were high. And I had to know what happened next. Every time, like a little smidge of information was given, every time a reveal was made, every time a character made a move, I was like, what does this change? What does this mean? Well. All these characters, everything that I can't even speak. Like, what is the third book gonna look like? How's the ending of the story gonna be? What's gonna happen? nothing good. At this point, nothing good. So, wow. Yeah, I really can't tell you much because I can't spoil anything, but just know that if you read this book, you are going to have to wait for the third book. This is why I'm usually the kind of person who reads a series after it's completed. But with C.S. the Cat, I was like, I just can't wait. I just can't wait. And now I just have to deal with the long wait. Yep, that's the story of my life right now. But I'm caught up in a series, and it was a 5-star. Wow. Okay, yeah. That's not much of a review, but I you got to pick up this series. Okay, I don't care if you don't like young adult books. I feel like this is good for all ages. I mean, to me, this is a young adult high fantasy story, okay? It might not be as complex as like an adult high fantasy, but I think that it's a really good place for fantasy beginners, for people who are trying to get used to following multiple characters who have very differing personalities and upbringings and beliefs and values and goals, and living in a world that is constantly expanding and growing and changing and has an alternate history to what we're used to get used to learning about magic systems and magical beings and all that jazz. Everything you could possibly want in a fantasy novel, and with a lot of diversity within it as well. Yes, read this series, but maybe be smart and wait until at least there's a release date for the third book, so you don't have to suffer with the rest of us here, okay? But that being said, this was the third book, so let's see. I mean, the thought of like picking up another book, I'm just supposed to read this and move on to another book and just like move on with my life. Okay, let's do that. We are gonna go ahead and pull up the videos. All right, guys, let's pull it up. We were with Lizzie, so let's return to Lizzie.
Okay, if after reading that book you have 0 or 1 book left to finish the series, so either you finished or caught up or there's 1 book left, you're going to click here. And if you have 2 or more books left to finish that series, you're going to click here. Enjoy.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest, I am 99.9% sure that this is going to be a trilogy. So I'm going to put on finished or 1 because I do have 1 book left, okay? If something comes out and this is going to be more than a trilogy, I apologize, but I'm going off the information that I currently have. So I'm going to go ahead and return to Bailey.
Hello, you've found me along your path again. You got to me in this video by either finishing your series or only having 1 book left. So I'm here to give you your next prompt along the board. And your prompt this time is to read a sequel with an average rating below 3.75. If you don't have anything that low, go ahead and read the lowest rated one that you do have, but go ahead, read that sequel, and then come back here. I'm going to send you off to your next video.
So you want me to go from a 5-star rated book to potentially not? Okay, rated less than a 3.75. See, I was kind of hoping that I could get this one, but the probability of this being rated low is somewhere around 0. So let me take a little look-see-loo. I'm going to have to check Goodreads and see what the average ratings are for some of the books I want to read. And I will come back to you once I've picked my read. All right, decision has been made. I checked a couple of the shorter books that are on my TBR card, but unfortunately none of those met the mark, which is not surprising because they are all good, popular books that have high ratings. That's just life. However, learn my lesson. by Katie Roberts, which is the second book in the Wicked Villains series, has a 3.70, which is below a 3.75. So I will be reading Learn My Lesson. It is 258 pages. I was looking for a short book, and this is also primarily smut, so it should be a relatively quick read. Also, I have the ebook on my Kindle through the library, and I find that I read a little bit quicker when I'm on the app on my phone. Not so much on my Kindle because it's kind of uncomfortable to hold, but on my phone, when I use my Kindle app, I read relatively quickly, and also it's just easy to pick up my phone real quick and to scroll for a few pages. Like, even tomorrow is a gym day, so like when I go to the gym in between sets, I can just read a few pages. So hopefully it won't take me too long. This is a poly romance between Hades, Meg, and Hercules. So if you're unfamiliar with Katie Roberts' Wicked Villain series, it is a bunch of retellings of Disney villains, and they are erotic, and of course it is always the villains with the heroes or heroines. Blah. So this one, like I said, is a poly romance. I believe they're kind of set in a modern world, giving kind of like the mafia vibes and stuff like that. I read Learn My Lesson. Did I read it this year or was it last year? It might have been last year, and I had a decent time with it. I think that was my first experience with Katie Roberts, and while I enjoyed it, I decided that I would get it via the library instead of spending money on these, because they're all pretty much almost novellas. I guess at over 250 pages, it's not quite a novella, but still. It's a fun, easy time, and it is a longer series, so it is nice to make a little bit of progress in it. Is it going to get me any closer to finishing a series this year? No, but like I said, it's short, it's sexy, and it is under 3.75 ratings. I am excited for this one because I usually really like poly romances. This one seems like it might have like a little bit of enemies to lovers. Katie Roberts books, at least with the series, seem to have like a BDSM vibe to them. We have Hercules, who kind of sets out to save Meg because he believes she's under Hades' control, but when he gets there, he finds out that she's like exactly where she wants to be. She's like, no, I'm really happy here, and you could be happy too. And then he finds out she's right. So I'm excited to check that out. It is after 9 o'clock. I will probably start getting ready for bed and not start reading this until tomorrow. But as always, I will probably check in with you around the 50% mark with a erotic story. Is there much I can really tell you about it? Not really, but it might be a little easier to talk about because it's not like a continuation of a series. It's a companion novel, so I don't have to worry about spoilers as much. So I'm not too upset about this prompt, Bailey. I was really hoping to either pick up the final T-Dragon book, which would complete the T-Dragon trilogy, or to pick up Bitter by Akiki Mezi, which would complete that duology. But who knows? Maybe the next prompt will let me pick those up. But I will check in with you guys later. Hello, I'm here for the 50% update for Learn My Lesson. I was about to sit down for my lunch break. It is a Friday, and then I realized I was 53% through the book. So I was like, oh, time for an update here. We are on page 137, and I'm having a good time with this book. I mean, with a story like this, there isn't really too much that I can really say. I mean, it is very smut forward, but right now it doesn't seem like there is a lot of plot. Essentially, Hades is the owner of the underworld, which is a club that resides in the center of all these territories, and it's kind of like neutral ground. It's neutral ground. So essentially, when people from the other territories are there, they are not supposed to do anything like kill each other while they are there. It's supposed to be a safe space. And it is obviously a BDSM club, and he has been running this club for a long time, and for a long time he's been running it with Meg, who is our other character, and they have been in a romantic relationship ever since she made a deal with him on behalf of a man who essentially up and left her, just like with the Disney movie. And on top of that, we have Hercules, who saw Meg in this position as a sub and, not really knowing how all of this works, sees her as a damsel in distress and decides to make a deal with Hades for her freedom. Of course, she doesn't need her freedom. She essentially is almost free in a way, but she's exactly where she wants to be. So Hercules has essentially locked himself into this lifetime deal with Hades for nothing. Now, Hercules is connected to Olympus, where his father Zeus rules, and Hades obviously has some beef with Zeus. We're not really sure exactly what that is yet, but he is hoping to use Hercules to give back to Zeus for something that he did a very long time ago, like even before he and Meg were together. Like Meg really throughout the story isn't really sure what Hades's motivations are, and that is a big issue in their relationship. When they first got together, he was very open with her. There was a lot of things about his plans and his dealings and his business that he shared with her. And over the years, he has kind of become a little bit more distant, and she's really struggling with that. And he seems to have noticed that. And it's one of the reasons he brought Hercules in, not just so that he can use him to get back to Zeus, but he feels that Hercules might be able to give Meg something that she's missing in a relationship with him. And Hercules, as he's kind of getting closer to them, is starting to realize some of the cracks that are in their relationship and seeing how he might be able to help bridge those gaps. So it definitely has had a lot of kink in it, as with all of the stories and everything. Right now we have Hercules, who is a baby sub. Like, he doesn't really have any experience within the BDSM world, or isn't very familiar with being a sub, or ever really realized that that was what he is. So that is kind of what he's learning. Obviously Hades is a dom, and Meg is actually a switch, meaning that she likes to be dominated, but she can also dominate other people. So she can really fulfill both roles. And I think that's an interesting dynamic within a poly relationship, where you kind of have one of each. I feel like I'm enjoying the characters. I'm, for the most part, enjoying the smut and the dynamics between the characters. I am a little frustrated with Hades's behavior, because I feel like he's so good at reading people, and he's so good at manipulating people and making all of these moves like way in advance to get what he wants. Yet it seems that he seems to know what Meg wants sometimes, but he's just like not giving it to her. And I don't really understand that, to be honest, because they live in the world of kink. Like, they always say consent is the most important thing. And on the other hand, when it comes to kink and BDSM, communication is one of the most important things. So part of me is just a little confused why, in a world where communication is so important, this couple is just completely failing at that. And the fact that Hades seems to realize what is going wrong, but isn't, I mean, I feel like he thinks Hercules is gonna solve everything, and has kind of given up on himself being the solution to the problem or something. And I feel like they can't just treat Hercules as this band-aid. Like, he's gonna have to do something to repair his relationship with Meg on his own. So not loving Hades's behavior right now. It's kind of making it feel a little bit like the miscommunication trope, except for the fact that it's not miscommunication. It's like purposeful lack of communication. And it's just very clear that Meg is becoming less and less happy with the situation, where it's almost like he's making things worse instead of better. And Hercules has kind of found himself in this awkward position where he's like, I don't really know what to do, because Hades is his dom, so he needs to like listen to him, but at the same time he has this deep connection with Meg, and she can also be a dominant, so he's just like this little baby sub that has found himself like completely outside of his depth out of his comfort zone, and so he's floundering a little bit as well. I'm intrigued to see where the story goes and to kind of see how Meg and Hades repair their relationship and how Hercules will help with that. I'm also interested to learn a little bit more about Hades' past with Zeus, because essentially Olympus was supposed to be ruled by 3 different levels. However, Zeus decided to take power all for himself. And again, this is like not real Olympus or anything. It's just like another section of the city that is ruled by other powerful people, essentially. But I'm interested to see how they take down Zeus, because Hercules mentioned that he had kind of fought against his father, and that's why he left Olympus, because he kind of stood up to his father, and that didn't work out well at all after his father was accused of sexually assaulting a woman. And obviously Hercules, being the good guy that he is like, I'm not gonna let my father get away with sexual assault. But unfortunately he just didn't have the power to do anything about that. So Zeus is clearly a bad guy, and it'll be fun to go ahead and take him down a peg. Now I will say that Katie Roberts has a separate world that follows a lot of Greek gods, and I'm assuming that they are completely separate from this. Like, I would find it very hard to believe that the Zeus that we are hearing about in this story would ever be a love interest in even a spin-off series. At least that's what I'm hoping, because, you know, as soon as someone is accused and has there's proof of sexual assault, they're irredeemable. Like there's nothing that you can do to make them a good person again. So I'm assuming that they're fully separate series, despite the fact that there is a place called Olympus with people that are named after the Greek gods there. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the book so far. Having a good time with it. I'm not confident that I'll finish it today. My parents are going out tonight, and I'm kind of waffling between staying in and eating leftovers or driving over to the west side, because I do need to return a Barnes & Noble book, because I bought a book that I thought I failed to pre-order, and then when I got back home it was like there. Like it literally arrived while I was buying the book, and I was like, oh, okay, well, whoops, I guess I did pre-order that. So I do need to return a book. I'm low on milk, so I should go to Trader Joe's, and then there's a sushi place that I like there. So it's just a matter of if I want to drive to the west side. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I'll probably do a decent amount of reading tonight, since it'll be just me here. And then tomorrow is going to be relatively busy, because I need to do some filming and editing for my winter TBR, as well as to keep up with my daily posts that I'm doing for my top 30 books, because so far I've only filmed the first 15 days, and the 15th is on Saturday. So when Saturday comes around, I will have been all caught up. So I need to film and edit and post some more of those. So we'll see how much reading we get done. Considering that this is the 4th prompt, I'm not optimistic that I'm going to finish this readathon within the allotted time, but we're going to go ahead and keep chugging along until we reach the final prompt. So I will go ahead and check in with you once I have finished this book. Alrighty, guess who just finished her book? Yay! It is Saturday late afternoon, a little bit after 4 o'clock. I spent most of this afternoon doing some filming and some editing, though I didn't get as much editing done as I wanted to, so I'll probably do a little bit more tonight, but I did want to go ahead and finish this book. This book ended, and then there was like 4 or so short stories, and I read a couple of them, but for the most part they were just more smut, and I was like, okay, I'm done with that. So I didn't read the other 2 stories, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and rate this a solid 3 stars. This book ended up being around 250-260 pages, and I honestly think it could have been closer to 200 pages. I felt like it was just too long, like there's just too much smut. I was like, oh my god, I know this is erotica, but like, let's get to the plot point, because I was kind of interested to see what would happen with Zeus. And when I tell you that what happened with Zeus took like maybe 5 pages, I was like, what? That's all? That was a very anticlimactic. But that being said, it was still a fun time, and I did still enjoy the characters, and it still made me giddy and everything along those lines. And I'll definitely be continuing this series when I do want a fun, smutty time. But I do think it was just a little bit too much smut. I don't know if it's because I'm asexual, but I'm like, damn, like, you want more? Like, you just had like 3 rounds and you're still horny. Like, I literally don't understand. My brain could not comprehend how much sex these people were having. So a fun, easy read with likable characters, but I think that it was a little bit weak on the plot side. Talking about plot, there was some notes in the book, and the author was talking about how if things had gone down differently with Zeus, then the Olympus series would have been very different, which makes me think that that Zeus is the Zeus from Olympus. Now, I don't even know, or the Neon God series, I believe is what it's called, and I don't know if he's ever going to be a love interest. But I genuinely like don't understand how he could be. You know, like, I get that a lot of the guys in this series are not great. They usually are kind of almost like mob or gang leaders in a way, and maybe they've killed some people. But in this book, it is describing him as being a rapist, and I'm just like, I really hope he's not a love interest, because I just don't understand how the author would be able to make us just forgive or forget the fact that he is that. So I will be curious. We'll see if I read the Olympus series, because I sometimes feel like I want to be really into Greek retellings, but I'm not as much. So I'll keep chugging my way through the Disney villains. Right now, I am intrigued by some of the other couples. I think that Tinkerbell and Hook are going to be the next people, because in this book, Tink is working there, but she is coming to the end of her contract. And she also mentions that she realizes that the man that she was running from, who I'm assuming is going to be Peter Pan, has taken a new lover and has taken her brothers as kind of collateral to make sure she doesn't run away the way that Tink does. And she seems to be very interested in helping them, despite the fact that who I'm assuming is Wendy, doesn't at this point want to be rescued, but I'm assuming that that'll be kind of the plot of the next book. So I definitely think that we have some interesting couples coming up, and I am looking forward to it. I probably won't pick it up anytime soon, just because when it comes to erotica, I don't read it too often, because like I said with this book, it's just too much smut, in my opinion. I mean, I like a little bit more tension to build in between the scenes. I'd like a little bit more of a slow burn. Otherwise, it gets a little bit repetitive, and I'm actually felt myself like skimming some of the smuttier scenes toward the end. So that's why I landed on a solid 3 star. But let's go ahead and check and see what the 5th prompt is for this readathon.
I want you to go this way if your book had an animal companion, and I want you to go this way if there was no animal companion. Bye. See you next time. Maybe you'll find me again.
All right, we're going to me because there was no animal companion. Hey, come back. There was no animal companion, so we will be going to my video.
Hello, book lovers.
It's
My
me.
name is Natalie. I'm from Nat Cat's
Hi.
Bookish Cafe, and I'm here to give you your final prompt of this readathon. If you are here, then your previous book did not include an animal companion, so let's get some animals into your life. So November is my birthday month, so I wanted to do something birthday related, and I landed on the Chinese zodiac. Here is an image showing all of the Chinese zodiacs as well as the years that are associated with them, just in case you don't know which one is yours. I will of course have this linked down below since the words on here are pretty teeny tiny, so that way you can take a closer look at it. As you will notice, each zodiac has some positive qualities as well as some negative traits associated with it. So go ahead and look at your zodiac, take a look at its positive and negative traits, and pick a book that features a main character that best embodies those. All right, guys. So as you saw, my prompt is to choose a book with a character that embodies your zodiac sign. I personally am the pig. 95 is when I was born. So some of the positive qualities for the pig are loving, persuasive, satisfied, and some of the negative ones are fearful, gluttonous, and direct. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect on some of the characters in the books of my series and see which one embodies those characteristics. All right, so I have made my decision. I'm sorry if you can hear our wash machine working hard over there, but I have decided on A Grave Robbery by Diana Raybourn, and this is the 9th book in the Veronica Speedwell series, and this will catch me up on the series. So I have decided on this because I think that Veronica as a character would meet these requirements. So loving, Veronica is someone who very much cares about the people around her. She's constantly proving her love for her friends and especially for Stoker, as well as a love for science and her career in butterfly hunting. So she has a love for a lot of things. Persuasive, she is a very persuasive character, especially when it comes to Stoker. She can persuade him to do just about anything, no matter how dangerous it is. Satisfied, I would say she's relatively satisfied with the life that she's living. She's happy with the direction her life has taken and who's in it and what she's doing with it. As far as the negatives go, I don't think fearful really works for her. Gluttonous, I would say more like a glutton for danger kind of situation. She's constantly running headfirst into danger. And then direct, she can definitely be a little bit direct with the way that she speaks, which may sometimes come off as a little bit harsh. However, obviously, once you get to know her a little bit, she has a really great sense of humor and is just a really strong and intelligent woman. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this audiobook. It is, I believe, 12 hours long, and I listened to it on 2x speed. So that's about 6 hours of listening time, which I'm hoping I will be able to finish by tomorrow evening. We'll see if it happens. I'm kind of optimistic because I happen to know that this is the final prompt for me. So I believe that once I finish this, I will have completed the readathon. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into that book. I didn't really say what it's about. Obviously, I'm not going to talk too much about this specific book because we're 9 books into the series. I actually haven't read the synopsis, so I'm not sure what the mystery aspect of this is, but this series is always following Veronica and Stoker as they are investigating different mysteries across England, specifically in London, and essentially they're using their skills as natural scientists to get to the bottom of these mysteries. And there is obviously also a bit of a romance
romance that has developed between the two of them throughout this series, and I just absolutely love all the characters, our main characters, our side characters, all of it. And this is one of the series where I really do prefer the audiobooks. I think I read the first book physically, maybe the first two, but for sure the first book, and then I switched over to the audiobook and I never turned back. So I am excited to go ahead and check this out. My dad is traveling. He's driving down to California right now to visit his sister who recently had hip surgery, I believe. And so he will be gone for, I believe, until next weekend. And then my mom actually has an event tonight playing cards with her German friends. So I will have the house to myself. So I'll probably go ahead and just do some editing as well as listen to my audiobook. And then hopefully tomorrow I will be able to finish it up. I don't really have any plans tomorrow other than probably going to the gym in the morning. So I'll try listening to this while I'm at the gym. And then we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I will go ahead and check in with you once I have reached the 50% mark of this book. Hi, Loki. Hello. All right, so I am here to check in because I am about 50% through my current read, A Grave Robbery, and specifically 48% through it. Now, I was acting real optimistic yesterday that I was going to be able to finish it by the end of this readathon. However, yesterday I ended up binge watching a bunch of the, The Big Bang Theory. I've just been seeing clips from it, and I decided that I just had to rewatch the show, and so that is what I have been doing. So it is almost 4 o'clock now, and I have a little over 3 hours of listening time left, so a little over 6 hours of the book left. And unless I just neglect my family for the rest of the day, that's just not going to happen, and I don't really feel like doing that. I just put some brownies in the oven because my dad is traveling. I have taken the opportunity to put some walnuts in the brownie because he thinks walnuts are wood chips. So, but that being said, I will probably do like a little bit more reading today, but I just don't foresee it happening. I'll probably be hanging out with my mom and just relaxing and everything. But I did want to go ahead and give you an update. I am enjoying the story so far. One thing I find is that I love this series. I don't want you to get that twisted. I love the characters. I love their relationship and everything. But I do feel like there is a slight repetitive nature to the story. And I have to admit, I'm not really sure if this is one of those series where people read them out of order. I feel like it wouldn't be. That wouldn't make any sense to me. But sometimes the things that she says and describes, I'm like, you've said this in like every book so far. You know, like when she's describing the outfit that Veronica likes to wear for her butterfly hunting, or when she describes their current living residence or anything, she always describes it like exactly the same. And I was like, we've been hearing about this for the like last 7 to 8 books, depending on, you know, what she's talking about. So that's just something that I kind of noticed in this book, but that's really the only thing I can kind of complain about. Otherwise, it is a quick, easy read. I love the audiobooks. I think the narrator does a wonderful job. I love Veronica's character so much. It is just an addictive read at the end of the day, and I'm having a fun time with it. This one specifically, we have our characters who are presented with what they thought was I'm trying to remember, an anatomically correct wax figure. I think they were saying they were called like Venus's, Daughters of Venus. I can't exactly remember, but essentially I guess that a lot of people who were practicing to become surgeons used to use them, where they were wax figures. However, they were very anatomically correct to the point where, you know, you could study them for medical reasons. And our characters received one of these from, I guess you could consider him their patron, and he asked them to insert some sort of mechanics within her so that she could move as a gift to his daughter. However, when they cut her open, they found out that she was like a very well preserved corpse instead. And they are now trying to figure out exactly who this woman was and if she died of natural causes or if it was a murder. So that's kind of the situation that we are in right now. Mystery wise, I think it's an okay mystery. I think the best aspect of the mystery so far is that it has led them to some really interesting people, because we are dealing with these really lifelike wax dolls, and a very interesting group of people is collecting them now that they're no longer in use by the medical community, because the medical community's kind of moved on to other methods. So we have met some really interesting people, and I've enjoyed that aspect of the story. The mystery itself, though, I get why they are invested. You know, obviously this woman is very young. They suspect she's probably between the ages of 18 and 20, and there's some other things about her that make them suspect that she might have not had the power to save herself from an unsavory situation. So especially Stoker, with his soft heart, definitely wants to make sure that she gets justice. But at the same time, we're kind of realizing that because she's preserved, this is a crime that happened, like, it seems like quite a few years ago. So it doesn't seem to have like the same threat and urgency as some of the other mysteries throughout this series. But that being said, I mean, when it comes to this series, it's never the mysteries that are my favorite part of the story. It's the people that they meet along the way. And like I mentioned, they are meeting some interesting people. So I am having a good time with it. I don't think it's going to be one of the higher rated ones. I'm trying to think. I want to say it was Kayla from Lala Reads. I could have sworn she was reading this one recently, or talking about this one, that this is one of the lower rated ones when it comes to the series. And I can definitely see that. I'm probably thinking that right now it's probably going to be like a 3.5 or a 4-star read. But like I said, I'm only halfway through the story, and our characters seem to be getting closer and closer. You know, they keep meeting people who send them to other people, who send them to other people, who send them to those people. So we're also starting to see some people who are brought up in multiple circles, which of course makes them seem a little bit more likely to be linked to the crime. But I'm having a decent time, and I'm definitely looking forward to continuing it. Like I said, definitely isn't going to happen today, but I am going to go ahead and aim to finish it tomorrow if I need to listen to some of it while I'm at work. And I also have my chiropractor appointment, which I need to drive to after work, so that'll be some time to listen to the audiobook as well. But that is the update for now. Next time I check in with you will probably be to wrap up this vlog, so I will talk to you guys soon. All right, hello everyone. I am here to wrap up this vlog because I have finished my final book for this readathon. I did end up finishing it last night at like 10:30, so I'm here on my first break of Tuesday to wrap it up for you, because last night I was tired and ready to go to bed. So I finished A Grave Robbery, and I think that I'm gonna give it a solid 4 stars. With these books, I feel like sometimes when you get into a series that follows like the same characters, and I don't want to say like the same plot points, but in a way, kind of. I mean, they fall into a mystery, they solve the mystery, and it's always a good time. I always have fun with this story. Don't get it twisted or anything. It is a really good time, and I love these characters and everything. But sometimes it's kind of hard to have like that 5-star feeling, because it is a little bit similar to the other work that you have read within this series, so it doesn't feel as like standoutish or anything like that. This one, I would say the mystery aspect of it, like the resolution and the outcome, I felt was a little bit more sinister, a little bit more disturbing than some of the other stuff that we experienced throughout this series. Like, it actually made me just a smidge uncomfortable, which I found surprising. And I do like that because it mixed it up a little bit. I also like that the side characters were a little bit more involved in the mystery. Maybe not so much the book, but our characters relied on the side characters a little bit more to kind of progress their investigation throughout the series. So I think the author was kind of like, well, we can't just always have it be Veronica and Stoker like solving all these crimes. They I mean, they aren't detectives at the end of the day. So I thought that was realistic and fun, and I'm interested to see kind of what the author does with that in the future. She starts to include those side characters a little bit more because they are characters that I like, whose lives and personalities I find interesting. So I definitely don't mind seeing more of them. So it was a good time. I had a fun time with it, but I feel like, I think I mentioned this a little bit when I first did my check-in, that there were certain aspects of the story that were starting to feel a little bit repetitive. I think the fact that I'm kind of caught up on the series now and can't binge read it. I mean, I haven't really been binge reading it, but reading it a little bit faster than I have been like other series might benefit my enjoyment of the series, because there'll be more time in between books, so I won't feel like they're as repetitive because there'll be more distance in between when I read each book, and so I'll forget some of the smaller details that the author might be revisiting over and over again in other books. So had a good time. That does catch me up on the Veronica Speedwell series. I am just opening my computer here, and I'm actually going to cover myself real quick with a little image that I made that wraps up this readathon to kind of show what I read. So again, we started off with a prompt from Is Bailey Reading, and the prompt was to finish a series, and luckily I only read one book for that. I read The Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar. I ended up giving this a 4-star rating, and it did complete that duology. Then we went over to Carbon Bonded Books, and the prompt was to read a book with 6 or more words in it, or the book with the most amount of words in it. I see here that I actually put letters, but whatever. That being said, I didn't have any books that were 6 or more words, but I had 3 that were 5 words, and I ended up selecting A Holly Jolly Ever After, and I ended up giving that a 4.5 stars. That was a really fun time. And then I moved on to Lizzie's Literary Life, where it was to read the book from the series that I've been working on the longest. So I finally read The Dark Air by C.S. Beckett, and I gave that 5 stars. Then we moved on to Bailey again at Is Bailey Reading, and we were to read a book that had a average rating under 3.75, and I picked up Learn My Lesson, which I believe had a 3.7 star rating, and I unfortunately ended up giving it only 3 stars, but I did have a decent time with that as well. And then we finished up this readathon with my own prompt, which was to use the Chinese zodiac's characteristics to read a book with a character that shared those characteristics. And again, I obviously picked A Grave Robbery for Veronica's characteristics that I felt aligned with the Year of the Pig, and I'm giving that 4 stars. So that puts us at 1 series completed, 2 series that I'm caught up on, and 2 other series that I made progress in. I was definitely hoping to catch up, or not catch up, but to complete more series, because obviously that would have been good for my annual goal of completing 15 series. but that is just not what ended up happening. I am not at all unhappy with what I accomplished in this readathon, especially since 5 books is what I read in my entirety of October. So I think it went really well, and I thought it was a lot of fun. So thank you, Bailey, for putting this together, and thank you to everyone who went ahead and created a prompt for this readathon. I think that I can definitely see myself revisiting this to maybe work on some series in the future. So maybe don't be surprised if you see it again, because obviously this is a choose your own adventure. So it's definitely possible to go different routes, and that might be fun. I don't know when that would happen. Probably not anytime soon, but I'll definitely keep it in my back pocket. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I know it was a very chatty vlog with like absolutely no b-roll, but since I knew I was going to be reading so many books and trying to do at least 2 updates for each book, I was like, you know, we gotta cut what we can to make this a reasonable length of video, and I have no idea how long it's gonna be. I think that I did a better job of shortening my check-ins. I know the first one was very long, like 30 minutes long. So hopefully I can cut that a little bit. But I hope you had a good time with this vlog. Let me know if you took part in this readathon and how you did in it. And even if you didn't take part in the readathon, let me know what your current favorite series is that you're working on. Like, which one are you the most excited to continue? As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.